I finally had the strength after a couple of weeks to walk myself into the washroom. And I looked in the mirror and I cried because I looked at myself and I'm all crooked and just like a skeleton. I was like, okay, this sucks. But I knew I could get back to where I was with the tools and the knowledge that I had. The one thing every single specialist said to me when I was in the hospital, the only reason you're still here is because of how healthy you came in. Because there were 4 other people my age with less stuff going on that came in with sepsis. They didn't make it. So I was one of 5 at that hospital.
Really? In the same age group?
Same age group.
Welcome to The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of athletes, coaches, guides, and trainers who have overcome challenges to reach their goals. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and today's conversation is one that will stay with you long after the episode ends. My guest, physiotherapist and performance educator Tom Swales, has spent over 20 years helping athletes and everyday movers recover, rebuild, and return to the activities that make them feel most alive. But in 2023, Tom found himself on the other side of the treatment table, facing a sudden, life-threatening illness that sent him into organ failure and forced him to relearn the basics of movement from the ground up. In this episode, Tom shares the story of his unexpected health crisis, what it taught him about resilience, the nervous system, and the true purpose of rehabilitation, and why he now sees a disciplined fitness practice as the greatest insurance policy we'll ever have. You'll hear practical wisdom for coaches and therapists, a refreshing clarity about how the body actually heals, and the drive and determination that carried Tom from toxic shock to walking again, and all the way back to gymnastics, snowboarding, and reclaiming his joy of everyday movement. If you are someone who cares about your longevity, your performance, or your capacity to handle whatever life throws your way, this is an episode you do not want to miss. Welcome back to The Mindful Trainer. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and my guest on the show today occupies such a cool niche in the body arts. Welcome, Tom Swales from Toronto, Canada.
Thanks for having me, Melanie.
Great to see you. I want to tell everyone about you. Tom is a physiotherapist, strength coach, and performance educator with over 20 years of experience helping clients, from Olympic athletes to weekend warriors, not only recover, but truly thrive. His practical, integrative strategies bring real clarity to rehab and peak performance. Tom founded the globally recognized Advanced Movement Therapist certification, guiding hundreds of physiotherapists, chiropractors, and strength coaches on how to simplify assessment and treatment for faster, lasting results. As clinical director of Comp Physio Performance Wellness in Barrie, and lead medical practitioner at the Toronto Pan Am Games, he's handled cases most would call impossible, including serving the Canadian men's alpine ski team. Awesome, Tom. I'm so excited to talk to you today. And to lead out, I have a very simple question for you.
Yes.
You know, in the United States, we have physical therapists.
Yes.
It's the same thing?
It's the same thing. In the US, everywhere else in the world, it's known as physiotherapy.
Okay.
The US likes to be different. It's just like, it's like hanging on to the imperial system of metrics. Everyone else goes metric, and you guys are like, nah, we're not doing that. That's too simple.
Yeah, okay. Got it. I've always wanted to ask someone that question, and I've never met a physio in the United States. So I'm stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah, sounds good.
Great. Well, Tom, you had quite the injury in 2023, and I know it gave you a different perspective on what you do and who you are. I'm dying to hear more about that.
2023, early June, I contracted sepsis. I went straight into toxic shock, organ failure, heart failure, liver failure, kidney failure, clotting disorder everywhere. And we don't really know how I contracted it. I suspected the week prior, I thought I had like a sinus infection. And then the Monday it moved into my throat. And I'm like, okay. And I kept training. I kept working. I kept kind of ignoring the signals of a virus or some kind of distress going on in my body. I just figured it's 30 plus degrees out, it's humid. I didn't recognize the fever. And I kept working and I kept pushing my body. And then that Thursday, all of a sudden I got crazy chills, went to bed at 4 p.m., woke up the next day, felt terrible, didn't sleep the next night. By the time it progressed Saturday morning, I had this extreme pain in my spine, in my right rib, which I just figured, I'm like, I have a subluxed rib. It's probably from an old soccer injury. Went to the clinic. Maybe I can get some relief. By the time my wife drove me back home, all of a sudden I couldn't move my neck. So I started thinking meningitis. So I said, you need to call an ambulance now. Came and got me. By the time they got me in, it was probably like 8 hours in the waiting room. They quickly figured out I was going into toxic shock because my hands went white. My blood pressure was dropping, oxygen saturation dropping quick. The doctors that found out what was happening, they got me this medication to put it in its tracks. But a lot of the sepsis already took hold. And they had to put me on dialysis because my kidneys were failing. So they cut me open, put a stent in, respirators. My toes went black. They thought they were going to have to amputate. Yeah. So I had a clotting disorder, cardiomyopathy. Everything was crashing pretty quick. And 10 days in the ICU. And the only thing my wife was asking, is he going to make it? And they're like, we won't know till day 7. We won't know till day 7. That's what they told her.
Day 7.
So I made it past day 7. And all of a sudden things started getting better. My kidneys started to come back online. So we did 10 days of dialysis. Finally, my kidneys came back enough where they could take me off dialysis. But then it was another 5 weeks in the rehab floor. I lost 50 pounds in that first 10 days. I went from 220 to 170 catheters. I went from being completely independent and everybody depending on me for answers and solutions. And I'm like, that's what I thrive on, is providing value and helping those around me, to completely dependent on everybody for everything. And that was probably the hardest thing for me. But it also made me realize how grateful I am for everyone around me, because they looked after my family. Our business was taken care of. Our staff just stepped up and they took care of the business so she could be at the hospital with me every day. And the 43 years of looking after my health, it was very quickly taken away in a matter of weeks. And I remember the one time I finally had enough strength. I got my walker. My ankle got infected, so they had to do surgery on my ankles because that got destroyed. And I finally had the strength after a couple of weeks to walker myself into the washroom. And I looked in the mirror and I cried because I looked at myself and I'm all crooked and just like a skeleton. I was like, okay, this sucks. But I knew I could get back to where I was with the tools and the knowledge that I had. The one thing every single specialist said to me when I was in the hospital, and I was very fortunate, the timing kind of worked out because I had some of the best specialists in Ontario working at that hospital. They just happened to be doing locums. And a majority of them said the only reason you're still here is because of how healthy you came in. Because there were 4 other people my age with less stuff going on that came in with sepsis. They didn't make it. So I was one of 5 at that hospital.
Really? In the same age group?
Same age group.
Wow.
And I had more stuff going on. I said to one of the docs, I said, what were my odds? He's like, oh, less than 20%. I was like, oh, really? I was sick. He's like, you were super sick. And the fact that you came out with all your limbs is even more rare, because most of the time people get flesh-eating disease because they were worried they're going to have to amputate all my toes because they all went black. And that made me realize that the work I've been putting in, that insurance policy being my health, paid off. And so many of my friends, they would come over to the house and they're like, if this happened to me, I don't know if I would have made it. And I'm like, well, I've been paying into this insurance policy called my health every single day of my life. I'm doing the exercise, the training, the sleep, cold plunges, nutrition, everything. And it was I looked at it as like, I've been training for that one moment so that I didn't have to leave my family sooner than later. So, but it also sparked a lot of my friends to start taking their health seriously, because they all started like, I saw what happened to you. How did this happen? You're so healthy. And it put a spark under their ass to be like, don't wait for next year. Don't wait for tomorrow. Start today, right? It's that, people will set New Year's resolution. Well, in January, yeah, but what about tomorrow?
Yeah.
Why are you waiting for some arbitrary date of a new year to be a new you? How about just start today? Go for a walk, Don't eat the sweets. Don't put the time in and build that capacity to handle stress, because in case shit happens, that's the point of it, is you're building up a resiliency and a capacity in case your body incurs some unforeseen stressor in life, that you can battle through it and come out the other side.
That is the most profound example of a story demonstrating what I call body equity that I think I've ever heard, Tom.
Well, I'm glad I could offer some value from that.
I'm blown away, and I'm incredibly sorry that you had to experience that. And your perspective on that you had been saving up for that day is really incredible. I feel that for you,
Well, the one thing my wife said, she's like, at least you're going to have an interesting story. At least you're going to be a little more interesting. I'm like, okay, thanks, honey.
You got that.
There we go. We got an interesting story out of it. Great.
You got that going for you, Tom.
Yep. There we go.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for bringing that to the podcast because, you never know. I live in a ski town and, if you get injured, it's like, hopefully there's a really cool story behind that. But the fact is that life brings inherent risks and who knows where these things come from, but they can just come out of nowhere and sideline you so fast. So what an incredible example that story is.
Yeah. And I would say, as much pain as I was in every single day, just the fact that, okay, I was on hard antibiotics for another 4 weeks, IV, because of the infection and the ankle surgery, but I couldn't keep anything in. And once I got off the antibiotic, I did what I could. And if it was, all right, I can walk outside with my crutches and go over to my, gymnastics bars and just do 10 push-ups on the bar, right? Standing up. And then I could walk back. And then that's all I had energy for. All right, go read my book, go relax, try another round in an hour or, whatever it is. I would do whatever my body allowed me to do, whatever I could. So at least I would start the momentum of rebuilding what I lost. And then I just, from a perspective of, how we learn to move and grow as babies from the ground up, I just took our perspective of, well, how did we learn to move? Well, we developed strength from the top down, center out. I would get on the ground and I would roll and I would crawl and I would, do all the ground movements to open up my spine again, to build strength and awareness here and then work on the periphery. When I was at the rehab floor at the hospital, it was funny because I knew all the physios there and they would wheel me in and they're like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, let's get the mat out, put the mat down and I'll just do groundwork for however long I can, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever I could. I would do it to the point of, where I was done, I'd have a moment where I'm crying and this sucks. And then I'm like, okay, then they would get me up and we'd do some squats on the bar. And then I would see how far I could crutch walk that day. And we would just increase steps. Okay, well, we made it this far today. Tomorrow we're going to try a little further. And that was my workout from going from gymnastics and snowboarding and all the sports and, all the cool fun stuff to you're just going to walk today with crutches for 30 feet. It was hard, but I've always been in the process and the mindset of I enjoy the training just for the sake of training and see how much little bit better I could be every single day. So I just took that mindset. I'm like, I'm going to get back to where I was. I'm going to be this. This is not going to own me. This is not going to become who I am. So now I'm back at gymnastics and I'm back snowboarding and wakeboarding and playing sports. And, does the body hurt? Yeah, it does a little bit, but I manage it. And if something flares up, I deal with it. And then I go back at it. I don't let it deter me or discourage me from doing the things I love because movement is my joy. Like doing as many things as I can and seeing what I can do with my body. It's fun for me. That's my challenge. I don't play too many team sports anymore because I just don't want to commit the time, but I will if it's like a pickup game. But I see the progress in developing handstands and backflips and whatever else I can kind of push to see, what I can do with my body in the time that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love how you take your discipline, drive, and determination, the same that you applied to getting to that 220 super fit pounds. And then you applied it to your own healing process and now to your life every day moving forward.
Yeah.
But it's the same principles.
It's the same principle. It's the overload principle. It's gradual progression. And being 46, am I going to see the leaps and bounds that I once did in my 20s? No. Am I seeing some kind of progress? Yes. Am I going to have some good days? Yep. I'll have some really good days. Am I going to have some really kind of crappy days where I'm gassed and I should probably take a day off? I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to listen to that. Yesterday was one of those days, but I had a hard training day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And as much as I wanted to do something fun yesterday, I was like, I can stretch. I can shovel snow. I can do lower level stuff. I can still get the work in. So it's not like I can go and crush it at the gym. And athletes, we teach them, you can't go and crush it every single day. That's not how the body works. You build. All of a sudden, the nervous system says, no, we need a day off. All right, we do a lighter day. Next day, oh, I feel good. Let's push this day, right? So it's building a lot of that self-awareness and appreciating what the body can do, but what it's also going to allow you to do that day and not force things onto the body that it doesn't really want to do or it won't accept. So it's like forcing square pegs in round holes. Let's avoid that, but having that self-awareness is key.
I like that. And I like how you are, you're practicing what you preach and you're bringing that full circle to how you teach and you're practicing what you prescribe. And in our pre-notes, you included a quote from Wim Hof, feeling
Yes,
is understanding.
feeling is understanding.
And I can hear that in the way you're speaking about how you approach your training every day.
Yeah. Well, if we're prescribing movements and exercises to our clients, the best, we can read textbooks and be like, oh, well, this exercise does this and it strengthens this. But when you actually do it, then you can start to feel, oh, you know what? It's actually having this effect on my body. And it can do so many more different things for different conditions. Give you an example, something as simple as a bird dog, right? For those who have been, you're on all fours, you're doing opposite arm, opposite leg. Well, the bird dog isn't just a core stability exercise. It's a spine position awareness against gravity. So we can correct the neck. It's a scap stability. We can work grip and wrist mobility. We can work cross cord reflexes for gait. So bird dog is a prerequisite for crawling. Crawling is a prerequisite for walking. Walking is a prerequisite for running. So we can look at some of those lower level exercises or rehab exercises, but if those are challenging, some of the advanced stuff that we do might cause a problem. I'll give you another example. Runners come in, they're like, oh, I got this hip, knee, low back pain, but they can't stand on one leg with their eyes closed for 10 seconds. I said, when you're running, you're doing single leg balance, but now you're hitting it with 2 to 4 times body weight. So if you can't stand on one leg with your eyes closed for 10 seconds statically, how well do you think running's going for you? Probably not too good. And that's why we're overloading the knee, the Achilles, the plantar fascia, or the low back, or whatever is bugging you. So why don't we just sort that out? And then we can go back down through what are the prerequisites for running? Well, your single leg balance is a problem, but we don't know why. Is it a core issue? Is it a proprioception problem? Is it a cerebellar issue, right? Maybe the brain's not firing up one side or the other differently. So we got to correct some of that. It might be from an old concussion, might be from repetitive movements to one side and your brain's paying attention to this side all day and it's ignoring this side. Well, now we have overload issues on here simply because of a top-down control problem. Looking at these complex things that we do as humans, yeah, we can try and train that in those positions, but it's really hard to do that because we're really good at compensating. How about we go back down through the neurodevelopmental program of all these prerequisites? Because if you get stuck on one of these lower level things, that might be your linchpin as to why this advanced thing is hurting you. So it's just breaking down and having a deeper understanding of human movement and development that can better guide us as to where we need to, what's the entry point for every individual for the rehab process or getting past their pain and getting into high performance.
Yeah. Beautifully described. I mean, I'd have so little to add to that, except that I want to add again from your pre-notes, the way you describe that in simple words is if you can't feel it, the brain can't find it, and the nervous system can't fire it. And I remember I was working with a client one day, I think we were doing a bridge, and I was like, okay, fire your glutes. And I had been saying this to him for weeks, right? And finally he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? Are you talking about my ass? Like, what do you mean fire it? And
Yeah.
I realized
Brain does not know.
The brain doesn't know what that means.
No. But if you give it a little bit of tapping, right? You tap the glutes, give it
like
a palpation. Brain's like, oh, I know where the hand is. So then now, because you brought awareness, so you're going from the sensory cortex that goes to the motor cortex. And then the brain's like, oh, I can feel that now. So let's try and build a connection to that because I can feel it. Or maybe the position is dominated by the quads and the low back. Well, let's go in quadruped and just do some fire hydrants to see, and now hold it there. Let's hold on to this position till your glute burns. Because when it starts burning up, brain's like, oh, I know where that muscle is. Now it's going to start to integrate it. But we have to build awareness in those muscles to get them to feel it so that it becomes an automatic firing rate. And then we reintegrate it with the patterns. But sometimes we do need to isolate before we reintegrate. And then we start to accelerate on top of that.
Beautiful. And for any listeners who don't know what proprioception is, can you give us an example of that?
It's a fancy word for awareness. So it's your awareness of where a muscle is, a body part is in space. That's all it is. But we like using fancy words because it makes us sound smart. We can charge more money for our services, right? So
I do love that word, I have to say. Yes. And throughout this conversation, you've really exemplified your philosophy that everyone is neuro until proven otherwise. What do you mean by that?
Well, the brain controls everything. The nervous system's the master system that regulates all of our internal systems. And I didn't realize this till later in my orthopedic career, where I actually almost failed physio school because of neuro.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was close. And neurophys, it was in the same semester, first semester. A friend of mine and I, we got a 58 on our midterm, and the professor's just like, you know, you need a 60 to pass, right? And we're like, yeah, we know. And then we also had neuroanatomy, and the neuroanatomy teacher, professor, also made it his job for everybody to fail the finals because he made it so hard.
No.
So I had a 62 in the midterm, and you need a 60. And the finals is everything in the entire semester. So I had to read the neuro textbook from front to back, make notes, and I happened to get a 62 on the final, and I passed. And when I said that, I was like, I'm never touching this again. And then as I moved into my career, seeing these kind of odd presentations of like, well, this seems like a meniscus, but it's not, right? And it's not responding. And then you start looking at neurodynamics, and you look at myotomes and the nerve connections, and then the muscle connections of why, you know, what that specific nerve root innervates. You're like, oh, it's coming from the back. Oh, it's coming from the foot, because the nervous system's primary job is survival. If we distill it, what it's designed to do, it's don't die, keep us alive, avoid pain, and look for safety. So then now that we understand, okay, well, the body's compensating, and it's using its awareness of these sensations or inputs in the body as a proxy for, you know, move into this, move away from this. Well, if we check the nervous system and its connectivity first, these weird little orthopedic pains, they tend to go away, because then you're going after the root cause, which is the electrical system. So because everything we feel, it's always interpreted by the nervous system. Nervous system is like, do I like this? Is this safe? Yes or no? Oh, I have tightness here. Well, the tightness might be protecting something. It might be guarding. It might be compensating for something. So we got to figure out, why is that muscle tight? Because muscles, I tell my clients, I'm like, muscles are dumb. They're only doing what the brain tells them to do. And if you go and start stretching that and releasing it, we might be exposing something else that it might be protecting or compensating or stabilizing. So if we start looking at the nervous system first, then it gets a lot more clear as to where the why or the cause of someone's pain is. And oftentimes it's basically the neurological compromise somewhere, even though they might not be having like the traditional, I have numbness, burning, tingling, but you can have an intermittent compression of a nerve as somebody walks, causing intermittent stenosis that's interfering with the nerve conduction to specific muscles. And all of a sudden those muscles aren't working, but it's because of a nerve compression, maybe in the back, thoracic spine, up at the neck, and it's causing a knee issue. But I've created a system that kind of goes through the algorithm of the human being to look at those more important structures first, because the brain will protect a nerve more than a muscle. Why? Because if you tear a nerve, everything supplied by that nerve is gone, and the nerve won't heal back. If you tear a muscle, the body can heal that. The body will be happy to tear a hamstring before the sciatic nerve.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
People come in, I have tight hamstrings. I'm like, do you? And oftentimes it's some kind of compression in the spine. Well, let's get this opening up first, and all of a sudden hamstring tightness goes away. Wasn't the hamstrings. That was a symptom. So then we can start looking for root cause by going through the lens of neurology and at least clearing that out and making sure that those more important structures are taken care of. Well, now the nervous system starts to reorganize the orthopedic side of things and the muscle systems and the joint systems. So it gets a lot more easy, more simple, more clear as to what is the actual cause of this pain, because pain travels through nerves and it's interpreted by the brain. So why wouldn't we go after the nervous system first? Because that's what's carrying the signals.
Tom, I'm fascinated. You're making me want to go back to physical therapy school or physio, some outside of the country. I really am.
Yeah. Or you can take, there's courses, you know, neurology is becoming more of the forefront, and there's lots of great systems out there. I created the AMT for that reason, because, you know, the more we learn, the more confused we get. And I have all these tools and techniques, and it became convoluted. And I'm like, I don't even know what works for anybody. But then once I figured out an algorithm to go through, almost like a checklist of, you know, look at posture, look at, you know, breathing, look at the neural structures, do your neuroscan, break down the parts and the pieces, looking from a top down, center out perspective. Anything central is going to take priority over peripheral. Why? Because all the important structures are here. Looking at how we developed embryologically, right? Through tubes. Well, we're just a series of tubes and wires. And one end of the tube, if it gets kinked, well, it can affect conduction or flow down someplace else. And we created some new compensation. The pain that we're having is often a secondary or tertiary problem or symptom from a primary driver someplace else, which is why it's also important to build the picture of the individual. People forget, oh, I had a car accident 10, 12 years ago. And yeah, I had a whiplash injury. Yeah, but I have low back pain. Yeah, but it's the top end of the tube. You can't turn your head. So what do? They rotate into their back, get the neck moving, get the neck happy. All of a sudden, oh, back pain's gone. So it's building a picture of the individual in front of you by asking lots of questions, creating that connection, creating that safety. And then you go through the system, like, let's look at the body, how it moves as one unit first before we start breaking down its parts and pieces. Because if you're like, you're not rotating really well to the left, why is that? Is it your T-spine? Is it your neck? Is it your hip? Oh, it's your T-spine. Well, let's look after that a little bit more. You know what? Your ribs or your diaphragm stuck on that left side and it's preventing your rotation. So you're putting rotation someplace else, because then it becomes a physics problem. Energy moves to the area of least resistance. You don't rotate here? Well, bodies are like, well, I can rotate in my lower back. I can get the job done. But guess what doesn't rotate? Low back's not designed to rotate. So you can look at it from a neurological perspective, and then you look at it from a physics perspective of the pieces that aren't moving, the body's going to ignore. And the parts that move pretty good, the body's going to do more, right?
Like hypermobility.
Hypermobility, exactly.
Okay.
So you start overloading those tissues, and they're like, oh, you have an overuse problem. No, you have a movement, you have an energy distribution problem. You are not distributing forces across your body effectively, and you're accumulating it into those tissues that are now breaking down and they can't handle it anymore.
Again, I just, for anyone listening, I'm taking my hand to my forehead and going like a mind blown. But you actually nailed what I'm experiencing today in this moment, Tom, is that this old injury from 3 years ago, this old whiplash is flaring up. And
Yep.
I'm like, I was working on myself this morning, range of motion, feeling things out. And I'm like, okay, know why this is happening. Like something really ribby has been happening lately that we've been addressing. And now here comes this old injury back to the surface. And I'm
Yep.
feeling sorry for myself. And I'm like, okay, well, I can work on this for a couple days. I'll probably be okay. And I was like, nope, because I start to feel my heart rate get a little palpation. And I'm like, my nerves are
Yep.
being compressed right now. I'm just going to reach out and schedule that appointment right now. Like,
Well, why, one of the screening tests that physicians do is what? Take your heart rate, take your blood pressure. If heart rate's high, blood pressure's high, that's a signal saying something is off. It's not a signal saying, hey, we should take some blood pressure medication and drop your blood pressure. No, that's the first flag saying something internally is going wrong. You need to find out why. And oftentimes we don't know why the blood pressure is going off. But it is a signal, it's a flag saying you need to further investigate what is the body responding to? What is the nervous system feeling or detecting that you're not consciously aware of? And it's that first step to knowing something's off.
yep, beautiful. I love all of this. And I've found your Instagram to be awesome. I love watching your work with patients and clients.
Well, good. Thank you.
I could talk your ear off for hours, Tom, but I think we've captured so much, and I want to make sure the listeners know where they can find you, how they can connect with you, learn from your work, take your course and your certification.
Yep. So the courses and certifications, there's various levels. We have the AMT certification for your healthcare providers, your movement coaches, to get to kind of deeper root cause of movement dysfunction, pain, orthopedic issues, as well as unlocking performance. And then we have something for general population and athletes called the self-awareness movement scan. It's kind of like a 3-minute scan that you can do on yourself, and then you can self-correct. And I walk you through kind of another little separate algorithm of can't rotate here, check the hip, check the T-spine. Oh, it's your hip, do some banded hip mobility. So we have multiple tools and courses on there for athletes as well as for clinicians and coaches. That's at amtcertified.ca. We have a package. We actually have a cohort starting in January of 2026. We're starting our next cohort. So that'll be live coaching weekly. So people go through the online content, show up to cohort. We go through case studies. We go through problem solving. We develop a deeper understanding of how to apply, this algorithm and these techniques. And then my Instagram is swales.youtube. If you want to find longer format stuff, I record a lot of our mentorship that we do in-house, and I put that up there. Well, clinicians, coaches, you can look at content there and apply. Facebook's Tom Swales, LinkedIn Tom Swales. What else we got? TikTok is the AMT guy for those for your younger population who likes the TikTok. I'll throw some stuff up there too.
I like that. And I'm going to include all of that in the show notes
Great.
So that everybody can see that in writing as well and get to you quickly. And hopefully you're going to see some of your listeners in those courses.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Tom, it's been such a pleasure learning from you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Mel.
My pleasure. Wow. I felt that this was such a powerful conversation with physiotherapist and educator Tom Swales. His recovery journey is a reminder to me that resilience isn't something we build only when we need it. It's something we cultivate every single day through discipline, drive, determination, and the way we choose to move and care for our bodies. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who might be putting off their own health, or someone else who needs a reminder that healing isn't linear, but it is possible. And if you want to explore more conversations like this, make sure you're subscribed to the Mindful Trainer podcast wherever you listen. You can also visit webwell.com for training resources, outdoor-inspired wellness tools, and ways to work with me as you build your own body equity and resilience. The Mindful Trainer is the official podcast of WebWell. I'm your host, Melanie Webb. I'm also the founder and master trainer at WebWell. To learn more about WebWell and all we have to offer, please visit webwell.com. That's WEBBWELL. Until next time.